At dusk, the auditionees are met in front of Elysium Chapel by Chris Conscription, the faculty advisor. And that's exactly what I am. Your advisor, he says, wearing a self-effacing smile, running his palm through his self-effacing hair. The Theatre of Gold is a student-run enterprise, and you'll find that every play here is produced, directed, and performed by students. And we're not talking a couple of plays in a black box somewhere. I mean dozens of plays per year, maybe even hundreds. Student plays, as he mouths to Dunya. Dunya doesn't notice. Now I know that many of you are first years, and I'm glad that you have come out to audition. Your first play can open all sorts of doors here. In later quarters you can do more acting or tech, maybe playwriting, maybe directing, but it all starts here. Chris waves at the white crown church and the shadows behind it. We're auditioning in the chapel, says a lanky boy from Suriname. Oh no, says Chris. You're auditioning behind the chapel. When the students don't seem to understand, he goes on. Your experience with the Theatre of Gold will begin with a ritual. I think you'll find that just about everything here at Archaic University begins with a ritual. So behind me, behind the chapel, are the happy hunting grounds. They're not expansive, but you can get lost in them, tangled knots and all. That's where your directors are waiting to audition you. Any play you find, you can audition for. Auditions go on all night, so your chances correspond to your level of determination. Understand? Not really, most students seem to say with their feet and their shoulders, but a few take reluctant steps forward. After 3 or 4 students have entered the grounds, the spell snaps, and the mass of aspirants charges the darkened mass. Come on, says Dunya, grabbing Ezzy by the wrist. I'm not going to fuck this up. The heavy trees rush upon them and over them. Silence and blackness engulf them. The happy hunting grounds of Archaic are not large. They're scarcely 3,000 feet, from Sellers Hollows near the fairway to the Mosquito Fens on Winter's Road, but to the uninitiated, a high wave of crushing trunks and branches draws them in, draws them down. Once submerged, the depths are both deeper and darker than what they have expected. Ezzy's feet stumble through the dirt, but Dunya has a tight grip on her hand and moves with feverish speed. The dark is explicable. While winter is the darkest time of the year, spring and summer bring the thick foliage and heavy vines, and moss coats everything, living or dead, blotting out the sun. And yet by late September the days have already gotten short. Early autumn is the darkest time of year in the happy hunting grounds. The silence is more mysterious. Where did they all go? Ezzy wonders. Aren't another 30-plus students stomping around in here? Shouldn't they just be a few feet away from us? And aren't there a dozen directors in here waiting with scripts and forms and pencils and card tables? Why is everything so still? Ezzy would like to ask Dunya these things, but Dunya doesn't seem to be in a listening mood. She clutches Ezzy's hand painfully tight and pulls her quickly and deliberately through the spear-like tree trunks. And then, something sticky, Ezzy has walked through a spider web. She wrenches her hand away from Dunya. What? Says Dunya. Web! Ezzy claws it away from her face, and thinking that she feels tiny fast things scurrying across her face and down her throat, she screams. Stop screaming, shouts Dunya. Their voices are muffled, absorbed by the heavy messes all around. What's the matter? Asks Dunya. This place doesn't creep the hell out of you? It's just a forest, Ezzy. That was condescending, Ezzy thinks. Still, what am I going to do? Go back alone? Get lost? Fine, Ezzy says. Let's keep going. And now they move once more through the hushed haze of evening, where green-black trunks up close phase to green-gray trunks at a distance, and things more than silent than they ought to be flit and run the very peripheries. Dunya strides on. Her voice is brisk and strong, jarring in the deeps. The upperclassmen call this the horrid haunting grounds, she says. Why is that? Asks Ezzy, panting as she walks, although she isn't sure she wants to know. It's like the Aokigahara Jikai. The what? Oh, says Dunya, people go in there to kill themselves. Usually an overdose, or they hang themselves from the trees. More than 100 each year. 100? Really? I think we would have discovered one by now, as he thinks. But Dunya continues. Each year they get a bunch of volunteers, and they walk through the forest, and when they do, it's pretty much just one body after another. Tourists go there to see if they can find a body, and they usually do, and people also go in there to rob the bodies of money or even their clothes. It's so thick, you see, that the bodies are picked apart by animals, so even if the bodies are found in less than a year, they're pretty much nothing but bones. And also, a lot of the bodies are probably never found by anyone. They post a bunch of signs outside telling you not to go in, saying things like, life is worth living, and think about how sad your family will be if you die. You know, stuff like that. But I haven't seen any signs, as he thinks. Also, the soil is volcanic, and there are strange metal deposits, says Dunya, so compasses don't work. That's why a lot of people die even if they don't intend to kill themselves. They just get lost. It's too thick, too big, and they can't find their way out. Ezzy stops and Dunya turns around. Wait a minute, Ezzy says. That's not possible. The whole campus isn't that big. You can't be more than, I don't know, 10 minutes from the edge of this forest at any time. What, you mean here? This isn't even that big. I was talking about the Aokigahara Jikai. The what? The suicide woods of Japan, says Dunya, annoyed, at the bottom of Mount Fuji. But what about the happy hunting grounds? What about them? Why do the upperclassmen call them the horrid haunting grounds? Dunya shrugs. I don't know. Probably because they're dark and depressing. You know, like the Aokigahara Jikai. They start moving again, and Ezzy hears a sound off to her right now. Dim and faint, but clearly human voices. Relaxed. Relieved. Some of the actors must have found the auditions, but we don't seem to be headed that way. Indeed, it would be hard to move that way, at least directly. The trees are close together and choked with underbrush, and the air has gotten so thick that it is almost pitch black off to either side. Dunya seems to have found a rudimentary trail that winds through the huge trees and curves steadily off to the left. They're heading downhill. After several more minutes in the darkness, Ezzy hears more voices, laughing somewhere, maybe singing, but these are much fainter than before and definitely behind them. The path grows broader, firmer, less choked with rocks, and in the distance ahead, Ezzy sees the indigo sheen of twilight grass, an opening, an escape. A wind rips the heavy air in two, and its weight is dispelled by the sounds of humming and a strange and gentle rippling. Finally, the path opens onto a small clearing and, beyond the clearing, the remote extent of the fairway. Ezzy knows that this is correct because whenever she leaves Calliope Cradle, she sees the Tempor electrical power plant in the distance. And here it is in front of her, much closer. It looks like a cubical concrete mausoleum adorned with cooling spouts and time cells and a tower that spikes up from the middle. The cells glow with a ghostly white light. The air thrums gentle around her. The air is still and steady, and so time passes with little variation, little resistance. But then the clouds make way for the gibbous moon, and Ezzy sees the source of the rippling sound, not leaves, not animals, not this time, nooses. Dozens of them, new nooses, old nooses, wire nooses, rope nooses, a noose made of neckties, a noose of electrical tape, hanging from every tree, 6 or 8 or 12 feet off the ground. Dunya, she says, look at that. Huh, says Dunya. Weird. What the fuck? This doesn't freak you out? A little. I'm from kind of a rough town, Ezzy. There's an abandoned hospital near my house. It's covered with pentagrams and satanic slang and so on. It's mostly just kids just trying to be badass and scare each other away. I'm sure this is probably like that. Like, what good is a noose made out of electrical tape? Think about it. Anyway, we don't have to stay here. I mean, the auditions aren't here. I thought I heard some voices a while back. I think we should go back the way we came. Oh no, says Ezzy. I don't want to go back in there. It's dark out now, if you haven't noticed. And we can just head back to the cradle. If we walk down to the power plant, I'm sure that there's a road. Ezzy, says Dunya, I'm going to audition. Her voice is firm, non-negotiable. And you are too. You want your plays performed right. You don't want to give up on your dreams on the first week of college because you got afraid of the dark. Again, that condescension. It isn't just the dark, Ezzy says. It's the nooses all around us. Okay, fine, Dunya says. We won't go back that way. If we follow the fairway to our right, I think it'll take us down by the stream, and we can follow the stream back into the hunting grounds. I'm sure we'll hear someone and figure out where we can go from there.